your side there, Lance. That
Oh,
streaming service. I'll go check
yeah,
it out.
I was talking and I didn't set up my geez, how come it doesn't work?
Looks like we're on social.
Okay. Um okay, thank you. Those of you who are on our Zoom platform, and we're also restreaming on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. This is Lance Luke and Martin Pea. Um, Continuing our Ask the Expert series, Ask the Building Expert series of webinars, and we have a topic that we're not talking about Hawaii. We're talking about Florida, which is clear across the United States if you're in Hawaii. But thank you for attending. This is to me, a very important subject matter due to maintenance of buildings and collapse. This is one of the worst building collapses that I'm aware of in the United States, at least when I've been involved in my research and studies and things like that. So, going to be talking about the Florida building collapse that city of Surfside, close to Miami, and I'm going to be discussing understanding what happened, the causes, any kind of changes going on, and the future of condo ownership, what it means to be a condo building owner. And this webinar is presented by Construction Management Inspection, which is a Hawaii-based construction management and building inspection company. We also have a national building expert blog, and we'll tell you more about it. So let's go right into it. So this happened about 4 years ago, and it was national and international news. It was pretty devastating. There was about 100 people that got killed because their building had collapsed on them, and it was no one knew and predicted. It's not like you have a civil defense siren going off and you evacuate. It wasn't like that. Nobody really knew what was going on, and it was too late. So the Champlain Towers South collapse occurred um, on June 24th, 2021. 98 lives lost and widespread structural failures with the building was exposed. And we'll talk more about that. Um, the sequence of events, the collapse started as it was discovered, and I'll talk more about that as we go through the slides. But the basic idea or cause of the collapse investigation has determined that it was due to a structural failure of the pool deck caused by corroded reinforcing steel, which is a rebar, and spalling concrete. The failure triggered the collapse of adjacent sections, ultimately bringing down much of the tower. Survivors reported hearing like knocking noises or sounds minutes before the collapse, indicating that no one knew what was going on. Warning signs weren't weren't there. Although I'm going to talk about um, kind of red flags that would give people a heads up as to what could have happened and what did happen. So some of the investigation insights: corrosion of reinforcing steel, prolonged exposure to salt water and humidity causes steel reinforcement, which is commonly known as rebar, which is kind of a short term for reinforcing bars. And these bars are embedded in concrete, and those bars started corroding. This corrosion expanded the steel and cracked the surrounding concrete, a process known as spalling. Now, if your building is anywhere in the coastal areas, and I know we're talking about the state of Florida for now, but let's expand our understanding. Any coastal areas that's near water, a body of water, and we're talking like any coastal states of the United States, and then specifically, you have different cities like West Coast. You have Oregon, Washington, California, San Diego, Los Angeles, San Francisco. Any buildings near water, and Hawaii is a prime example. It's surrounded by ocean, and then let's go outside of the US. You have all these different countries that have buildings that are located on the coast, right? And I've been there, Italy, Spain, Portugal. I like to visit Madeira, and it's sort of like Hawaii, and it's right basically on the water. So when you have salt air, salt in the water, the trade winds lift the salt and ends up hitting the building, and then that's the start of the problem, right? People, board members of condos don't paint their building at the correct intervals, and then the paint starts wearing away, and next thing you know, moisture is entering in the concrete, leading to spalling. Some more insights, structural problems with the pool deck. There was an underground garage that showed visible signs of cracking and deterioration, indicating weakened load-bearing capacity. Now, there was a report from the pool maintenance people in the pool room. They had taken photos of basically cracked concrete and evidence of water infiltration. Cause of the problem is also due to design. So the initial idea of causation is design and construction issues. So when we're talking about design issues, investigators uncovered discrepancies between the original design plans and the actual building construction, with key deviations compromising structural integrity. And I'll talk more about that design issue. Also, inspection issues, oversight failures during the span of time. Not enough inspections were conducted, and inspections were completed by the wrong people. For instance, inspections were conducted when the building was built, original construction, by the project's engineer of record rather than an independent third-party inspection company or authority. So the pinpoint here is this lack of third-party oversight may have allowed construction flaws to persist unnoticed. So you may have a project engineer on the project, and he's supposed to do his own inspections as well as a contractor, but you want a third-party person, another set of eyes, right? Instead of depending on the actual people involved with the project. So after the building collapse, there's mandatory inspections and reserve funding requirement for condos. And there was a new safety Senate bill, and this Senate bill only applies in the state of Florida, state of Florida. So it doesn't apply to any other state in the United States. So when we talk about Senate Bill 4D, that's only applicable to the state of Hawaii. So the Florida state response to this tragedy includes Senate Bill 4D, which imposes stricter regulations on old condo buildings to ensure their safety and maintenance. Now, prior to this bill, the inspection criteria for these buildings were one time, once every 40 years, 40. That's kind of a long time, considering if concrete spalling can occur at a 10, 15 to 20-year interval, then it doesn't make any sense to have a mandatory inspection after 40 years, because basically you pass 2 cycles of spalling repair and painting, at least 2 cycles, maybe more. Okay, so that the law was old and it made no sense, antiquated, and it wasn't a consumer protection law. So focus areas, the 10-year inspection cycle. So from 40 years to 10 years. So 10-year inspection cycle. After the building's first built, then 10 years later, there's a requirement to have an inspection completed, right? In the past, it was 40 years, which, as you know, makes no sense, right? So the 10-year inspection cycle, after the initial buildings built, the buildings must undergo inspections every 10 years to ensure continued compliance with safety standards. And what type of inspection is a structural inspection? Also includes some electrical too. So what this means is the enhanced oversight. Particular attention is given to old aging buildings in high-risk coastal zones where the salt air, humidity, and hurricane exposure accelerate structural deterioration. Now, let me add that there's other buildings besides this building that collapsed that have been investigated, and some buildings have given a notice to repair or vacate. So it's not just a single building we're talking about. There's multiple buildings that kind of fit in the same category. As you know, if the building's not fixed up, there's a financial impact to getting the buildings fixed up, right? So in a condo situation, all condo owners are participants in raising money, for the outcome, for the repairs. Now, you cannot, as a condo owner, just because you don't use some of the amenities, you cannot opt out and decide how much you're going to pay. It's all dictated by your condo board, and you pay, normally it's a percentage of common interest. So every unit has to pay their maintenance fee. So if you have a condo unit owner, let's say, and he doesn't use a swimming pool, and they have a nice park, like a dog park and a children's playground, tennis court, and all that, and let's say he doesn't use any of that, he cannot go to the board and say, I'm not paying my full maintenance fee because I don't use half the amenities here. Or this is a vacation rental. I'm not even here 6 months out of the year, so I shouldn't pay my entire maintenance fee. It doesn't work that way. Everybody pays the same amount that you're assessed. Now, what happens if your reserve budget is too low and your maintenance fees aren't enough to pay for all the repairs? Okay, there's only 2 options. Well, basically there's 3, but I don't want to really discuss the third one. So the 2 options are, if your condo association doesn't have enough money, the 2 options are getting a bank loan or a special assessment to every unit owner. Now you might ask, well, what is the third option? The third option is do nothing, which doesn't work. Okay, so that's why I say there's only 2 options, either special assessment or bank loan. And people have told me, oh, well, why can't we just raise the maintenance fee? Okay, yeah, that could be one option, but in reality, you're never going to raise the maintenance fee enough to cover all the repairs. Okay, so can you imagine if your special assessment to fix things in the building was 30,000 or 45,000, or I've seen some situations where it goes up to over $200,000 per unit. I'm talking about per unit. So each condo owner would have to shell out that kind of money. How much of a maintenance fee increase would it cost to even pay for the $35,000 per unit? It's crazy. If you do the math, it ends up being double, 3 times, or 10 times the amount of maintenance fee you're paying. So if you're paying $1,000 a month in maintenance fee, all of a sudden you're going to jump to 10,000 a month. That doesn't make any sense. So the rising costs of maintenance and reserves are creating huge, significant financial burdens for condo owners and associations, especially those are people who are retired, senior citizens, or on fixed incomes. They can't easily just write a check for $50,000 or whatever. So the property values in older condos have dropped because buyers don't want to buy in those buildings, because once there's an inspection done, or they read the reserve study, or they say, well, can you give me a list of items that the building needs to fix? And you look at the list and you go, oh, concrete spalling repair, painting, waterproofing, cast iron pipe replacement, elevator modernization, roof repair. You add those up and you go, oh, wait a minute. This building doesn't look in good shape. So I think I'm going to look elsewhere. So basically that's what's happening. And then also insurance. Insurance for condos have gone up dramatically. Why? Because we had huge disasters throughout the United States. First, it was hurricanes, tornadoes, and then wildfires. So you add all those together, and the insurance companies are taking huge losses, and they have to make up for their losses. So either they're going to cancel insurance or they're going to jack up their insurance premiums. And that's been proven already, right? So if you look at the situation with these condo buildings, you got to really look at the reserve study and look at the building and find out the real facts. Like, newer properties may not have this problem, right? But the older ones do. And there's even financing issues where buyers can't get financing for certain condos because the condo's reserve study isn't enough, or they have too many capital improvement projects that they didn't do and they don't have money for. So it's getting stricter all around. So safety and accountability measures, inspection standards. So here's what you can do for your building to keep it safe and avoid a collapse, okay, or avoid major expense issues in the future. You have regular, routine visual inspections. They're vital to identify visible issues such as spalling cracks in the building, maybe window problems, water infiltration, metal corrosion, before they compromise the building's integrity. So if you see small things, I would recommend fixing it rather than waiting. Because if you don't fix a spalling crack that could cost $2,000 to repair, and you kick the can down the road, 5 years later, guess what? Instead of $1,000, it's now $20,000 or $30,000. Okay, so I've never seen a situation where the building materials and the labor costs decrease over time. It always increases, right? If you don't believe me, think about when you went to the grocery store 3 or 6 months ago to buy groceries, and you go today. Is the grocery cost lower? Is it the same? No, you end up spending more. Okay. The other thing is there's advanced testing methods such as core sampling, ultrasonic testing, ground penetrating radar, GPR. You can always hire engineers or consultants to use these tools to evaluate the internal condition of structural components without causing too much damage to the building. Now, sometimes it's fairly obvious when you see spalling, cracks, or rust stains flowing down the building, that kind of thing. So with this Florida building, it was really obvious, and they had reserve study done. They had engineering studies, and it all pointed to you got to fix your building to the tune of $15 million, 15 million. And the board kicked the can down the road because they didn't have money. And then look what happened. The building collapsed, right? So that's a big red flag. When you have inspections done, you want to hire licensed engineers to oversee the whole process. Professional engineers have the expertise in structural integrity, and they must conduct and certify these inspections to ensure accuracy and adhering to safety standards, also making sure that you comply with the current building codes. The engineer's role includes not only identifying issues, but also providing detailed reports with actionable recommendations for repairs or reinforcements. Now, here's something that is a takeaway. When you get a report from the engineer that says you should fix this or fix that, don't just toss it aside. You should follow that, because if you're a board member, you're going to be liable for not following the engineer's recommendations. Accountability, stricter oversight during construction. There's a recertification. So the certification to occupy a building occurs at the point of time when the building's built, first built, brand new. That's your certification. And the commonly used term is their certificate of occupancy. So that's what building departments like a DPP would issue. And that allows the building to be opened up for people to live and work in. Okay, so once you get the certificate of occupancy, that's your first certification. The second certification in the case of Florida will be the 10-year inspection program, and they have to get certified. The engineer has to sign off. So the building projects must adhere strictly to approved designs that meet all local and state building codes. And this requires rigorous third-party oversight during construction to ensure compliance. For older buildings, the regular recertifications, the 10 years, every 10 year, ensure that aging structures remain safe and any deterioration is addressed properly. Now, a question may come up if you're located in Hawaii, which we are, and you ask, well, is there such a 10-year certification in Hawaii? And the answer is no. We don't even have a 40-year recertification. So what happens is the building's built brand new. They get their certificate of occupancy, and it doesn't matter whether it's residential or commercial, right? Commercial buildings, let's say if it's an office building, no one's going to live there, but you still need a certificate of occupancy because that allows people to occupy the building and work there, okay? Shopping centers, same thing, right? You need the certificate. So in Hawaii, there's no 10-year, 20, 30, 40-year. There's no any recertification. It's like Wild Wild West. And if you ask the building department, well, how come? They say, well, we expect every building owner to self-manage. So we expect them to, know when they're supposed to have inspections done, when they're supposed to repair the building and all that. But let me tell you, based on my experience, that doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? Because of this typical example of buildings collapsing or major spalling repair and all that, right? So you cannot depend, if you're a condo association and you're a board member, you cannot depend on your property management company. They can only do so much. They don't hold your money, right? It's your money, and you're the one that has to agree to it as a condo board member. The roles of condo boards. This is an accountability problem. Condo board members have a fiduciary duty to maintain their property. Now, there's nothing in a condo law that says if you don't have enough money, you don't have to fix your building. Now, even if there is such a law, that doesn't make any sense, right? The best practice is to get your building fixed. Oh, but why are you saying that? Oh, we don't have any money. Okay, well, then what do? You don't kick the can down the road and go, we don't have money, so therefore we're not fixing our building. You got to take proactive steps and fix the building, repair things that need to be fixed. Because otherwise, if you're reactive, it's too late. Your insurance is going to get canceled, building's going to collapse. Worst case scenario, people get killed or severely injured, all because you didn't take that step. And it's hard. It's hard for a board member to say, you know what, we have no money. We're going to have to assess each owner, get a bank loan. And I know people aren't going to agree and they're going to get mad at me and all that. But you're there to serve the board in a capacity where you're serving every single condo unit owner, not for yourself. We're not thinking about, oh, people are going to like me and things like that. That's not why you're on the board, right? It's not a PR thing or something like that. Okay, it's different. You have a serious job. You gotta make sure your building is maintained, right? Timely, in a timely manner, and ongoing maintenance is taken care of. So board members must maintain clear communication with the condo owners, right? People who live there, people who don't live there, but they're still condo owners, and provide updates on inspection results, required repairs, and whatever the cost is. Sometimes it's hard and people don't like it, right? Okay, getting back to the 2021 update of the Champlain Towers South collapse investigation. Now, this is information that was gathered from the 2021 findings that we got. So the key findings from early federal investigation was discovered that there's extensive corrosion found where columns met the foundation. Overcrowded steel reinforcement observed throughout the structure. Now, overcrowded basically means that there's too much rebar in either a beam or a column. It's a structural member. And these structural members are designed to have so much rebar in it and at specific locations. If you have too much rebar, it can restrict the concrete flow going in to that area, and it could have voids like hollow areas, or there's too much steel and you can't mix the concrete. And then what happens is you have one area with a lot of concrete but no aggregate, then you want one area have too much aggregate. So that's not a good situation. Some more key findings from early federal investigation: concerns over congested rebar, especially in lap splice regions. Well, a lap splice is when you cut two pieces of rebar and you lap it together. It's sort of like lapping two pieces of wood together, right? And then also the concrete appeared powdery and white, lacking visible aggregate. They're saying likely saltwater damage. So as part of the investigation, they actually took samples of the rebar to determine the extent of corrosion and samples of concrete. Okay, and this is all from the collapsed building. Some more issues, questions raised about construction quality and inspection failures. Early engineers that came on criticized lack of action despite visible signs during 40-year inspection. So there was a 40-year inspection done, and the results were not good. Okay, so let's fast forward to this year, 2025. So this is the latest February NIST report to Congress, and NIST stands for the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and a lot of people never heard of that agency. It's an agency as part of the government, and it's part of the U.S. Department of Commerce. And what they do is they get involved in researching AI, cybersecurity, energy, engineering, and all that stuff. So this building collapse was so big that it actually involved this agency from the government that was appointed as the agency in charge of the entire investigation. So that's basically what the deal was. So as part of the investigation process, this agency analyzed 300 plus structural failure points under 25 hypotheses. So they create these models, 3D models, to try to figure out, well, what happened? How come this building fell down? Okay. Also reviewed 20,000 plus historical building records. So from the beginning of time, any building, any record of the building, any piece of paper or report or whatever, that was part of the investigation. Collected tens of thousands of civil litigation documents since March 2024. There were like over 100 plus lawsuits when the collapse happened, and it was like the next day or 2 days later. Processed 60 gigabytes of archival data, conducted 48 interviews, or there was more than that, with 92 more and 10 focus groups planned. So they're not done. They're still investigating. Some more information, structural material testing on 1,000 plus concrete and steel samples. So that's a lot. And then 108 geotechnical tests on soil, rock, groundwater, and foundation. Geotechnical is like soil engineering. So they're taking samples of the soil, rock, water, foundation, and all that. So they're determining what were the causation factors of the building collapse. So not only the building with the concrete and steel, but they're testing the ground too, and any kind of moisture or water in the ground. Full-scale testing of building replicas are underway at 2 universities, University of Minnesota, University of Washington. What's the goal? The goal, refine models to determine probable collapse, initiation, and sequence. So that's ongoing also. If you look at the image, this is a core sample. It's a concrete sample taken, and they do a compaction test to determine the quality of material and whether it compacted properly or too soon, whether it was too soft, and they go by the PSI of the concrete. And then the latest update, June 2025, investigation status. NIST has analyzed over 24 possible collapse scenarios using lab testing, physical evidence, video and audio data, and modeling. The modeling is interesting because they create a design of the building, and they have different scenarios of how the building collapsed and so forth. Some more information. Now, at this stage, the latest information, most likely cause identified. Failure likely began at the pool deck column connection due to misplaced steel reinforcement, under-designed structure elements, corrosion, added weight from planters and pavers. So if you have an original building and you add more weight to it without having a whole engineering design, that could be also problematic. Potential weaknesses in tower columns and beam joint areas are also being studied, so there's continued research. Here's the latest ruled out causes of the collapse. No evidence of soil-related issues. Karst, sinkholes. Karst is like a sinkhole or a hole in the ground where there's a void there. No sign of foundation or pile failure. So we're getting narrowed down as far as the focus of what the cause is. Waveform analysis of video, audio help refine the timeline of what happened, and also interviewing survivors contributed to confirming the sequence of collapse. Systematic failures in design, construction oversight, and record keeping weaken the structure from the start. Now, how is record keeping weakening the structure? Well, if you keep records and you just file it away and you don't really follow up with it, that could be problematic. The final report is expected in next year in 2026 with potential implications for building codes and inspection protocols. So what's going to happen is after the report's done, the building code agency is going to look at the findings and see how they're going to have different committees to see how building codes can be written better to compensate for problems like this so it doesn't happen again. And basically that's the whole thing in a nutshell. And let me go through this. What you missed, we give in a lot of webinars which are on our website that you can go to. And what's coming up, we have 2 webinars next month. The first one is what happens after a flood. So I'm talking about remediation versus reconstruction. You got to get the water out of there. Then after that, you got to deal with the mold if there is any, and fix all the damages. Okay. And then after that, I'm going to be talking about, this is a very good subject, the definition of good workmanship in construction. So if you ever have an issue with a contractor with whether they built something good or not, I'm going to be going into detail about what's the difference between good workmanship versus general workmanship, or we followed the code, but there's still a problem. Okay. Here's our main website, askbuildingexpert.now.site. And that's the site you can sign up for webinars. You can listen to other webinars we've given in the past. There's a bunch of other websites you can go to. We call those expert websites. We have a National Expert blog that there's a link to, which you can check out. And then, like I mentioned, our webinars that we've been giving. And then we have different books. So far, there's at least 50 to 60 books that you can check out if you want to. And then, oh yeah, this is a Florida building collapse book that I wrote specific to the Florida building that we talked about. We have a special website called floridabuildingcollapse.now.site. And then we have a couple other websites, Condo Expert website and Construction Experts website. And now we get to the Q&A. So I'm going to turn it over to Martin, see if any questions or comments came in. So Martin, bring you back in.
I'm here.
Okay, good.
Good job, good update.
All right.
a lot more questions, I'm sure, but we had some that have come in earlier, so let me ask you a few of them here. The first one here is what were the main warning signs that led to the Champlain Tower South collapse? And how could they have been addressed earlier?
Well, there was a series of inspections done, and also the reserve study, and these were in the course of years before the collapse, and that was a red flag. What happened was there were photos of uh, spalling, beams, columns, bad condition that needed to be repaired right away. Even an engineering report said you got to fix, the building now, not later. So those are red flags that occurred through the documentation review. So uh, it was obvious that there were signs of problems with the building, and nobody really fix anything. So that was the problem, right? So they knew about the problem. They knew that it needed to be fixed, but nothing was done because of the money issue. So that's what happened.
Okay, thank you. Good. The next one that's here is what did investigators identify as the primary causes of the structural failure in the Champlain Towers South collapse? And I know when you did your early 2021 webinar, you had your suspect as primary too. How has that worked out between the primary causes of and what you had suspected to be the problem?
Well, after the collapse, I went on the news and I basically said, I never been to the building, but based on the photos that I saw in the video, um, I just came out and said that the problem was due to concrete spalling initially, and that's part of the cause based on their investigation to date. But there's other factors that go along with that. So not only the lack of maintenance, concrete spalling, they're saying maybe the concrete wasn't that good, or the reinforcing steel wasn't placed in the right locations, those kind of things. But um, I think, and in my opinion, is that if the spalling was abated in a timely manner, even if the building wasn't designed properly and the concrete maybe wasn't so good, I think that would have saved the building from collapsing. But that's just me saying that without really knowing all the details. So I'm anxiously awaiting the report to come out so I can read it thoroughly and figure out, what the investigation results were.
Very good. Yeah, I remember what you said then too.
All right.
Okay, the next question here is how does the Florida Senate Bill 4D aim to prevent future incidents? And what are the key requirements for older condo buildings under this law?
Well, basically, if the building didn't collapse, there wouldn't be such a bill or such a law. And this is a reactive thing. What happened was the building collapsed and the government got involved, and they said, you know what, we got to do better. So that's how it came about. And the criteria is that you're forcing these older buildings to get their buildings inspected and fixed so that this collapse of a building just never happens again. And that's the whole idea. So unfortunately, it's a reactive situation, but fortunately, there's something positive, and all these other older buildings can actually have inspections done, and now they're forced to. It's not if they want to, right? So they're mandated by law to have inspections done. And with the inspection, now they're going to be mandated to do the repairs. So the bottom line is the government doesn't want to see buildings in this shape, old buildings falling apart and all that. So it's easier for them to go in and condemn the building and have everybody move out than have to deal with investigating a situation where a building collapsed and almost 100 people died.
Okay, good. Well, let me throw in my question at this point. We have a couple more, but you mentioned that we don't have an inspection schedule, or like inspecting the Hawaii buildings every 10 years or whatever.
Right.
So what's the risk that we could face the same kind of situations here?
Well, there's a big risk, especially if it's a condo building or an apartment building or any kind of building where the owners don't check their building or hire an engineer and follow their engineer's recommendations. So without the government involved, and there's pros and cons. A lot of people say we don't want the government telling us what to do. We're a condo. Okay. But a perfect example is this Florida building that collapsed because they didn't want the government telling what to do, but the board didn't take the proper action. And this is what happened, this big tragedy where people died. So it's not an easy subject to deal with because it involves money too. And I know there's condos that face huge insurance costs and they use their reserve money to pay for the insurance. But still yet, they still have to fix their buildings. And that's part of the problem. So until we get to that point, then it's always going to be a big question mark of, well, can condo boards effectively manage their property without governmental involvement? And part of the answer is yes, and part of the answer is no. So it's just up to the individual board members to do the right thing, basically.
Okay, good, thank you.
Yeah.
Let's see, I get another question here that's come in is, how have the new safety regulations impacted condo owners financially? And what challenges are they facing with special assessments and repairs?
Well, like I mentioned before, there's not enough money in reserves. So in order to put money back into the reserves or raise money to fix big capital improvement projects, there has to be either a construction loan applied for or a special assessment. There's no magic wand or anything. The problems aren't going away. If your roof leaks or you have concrete spalling, it has to be fixed, right? And it has to be fixed sooner than later, because if you wait too long, it could be a bigger problem. Let's take cast iron drain piping. It's old and it's in a condo building. If it bursts on a unit on the 30th floor and it floods every single floor down below and the ones nearby, now instead of one unit, you have 50 units involved in having to deal with the flood and the damage and all that. So that's why the insurance companies are really wanting to make sure that the buildings are fixed up, and otherwise, why would they take the risk?
Okay, and I guess the answer from the insurance company's side is that if they're not going to do the repairs, the insurance is either going up or they're not going to insure, right? That's what they're kind of facing now.
Yeah, and they can do that.
Yeah.
They're in the position to make that statement.
Right. Okay, let me see. I think I get one more question here, and it is, what practical steps can condo boards and residents take to improve safety and maintain the structural health of their buildings? follow your advice. Yes.
Very easy. Just have inspections done. I mean, if initially you want to have your property manager or site manager, resident manager do it, or a board member or a committee walk around the grounds, take a look at stuff. That's the first step. Second step is hire a professional, hire an engineer, somebody that can go around and look at these things for you and give you a report, and then um, discuss it. And if there's things in the report that need to be done, it's better to get it done than wait, and then it becomes a bigger costly problem in the future. So that's my advice. Hey, Martin, I noticed that somebody posted a question in the chat. So are you able to read that?
Oh, in the chat. Let me check. Oh yeah, I see it here. It says, are we blessed with third-party independent building oversight for all the new projects in Kaka'ako?
Yeah, the answer is yes, because there's a requirement, and it's under the building code, International Building Code. There's a section called Special Inspection, and the chapter on special inspections require a special inspector who normally is a third-party engineering company. Now, the DPP, the building department, allows the engineer of record to be that third-party inspector also, but you could find out, you could double check to see what they're doing. But that's more of a inspection fail-safe to me. You have your regular engineers of record on the project, your project engineers doing their inspections, as well as a third-party certification inspector. So answer to your question is yes, there are inspections. There's a building department inspection, and there's multiple inspections on brand new buildings. So the issue with this Florida building is once the initial brand new building built inspection is done, there was no inspections for years and years after that. That was the problem. That compounded with the issue of the building knew, the condo association board knew that there were problems, and they were trying to figure out how to raise the money, but they were too late. So that's you don't want to be too late. That's why board members have a hard job of not only running, the government of the condo, but also the repair and maintenance, making sure that all that's done. And there's very few condos who are fully funded. What I mean is have enough funds in the reserve to take care of everything when it should be taken care of. So that's another thing. So the main thing is just try to be more proactive and get more things done. Any comments or questions on our social media? If not, we can check it later.
Yeah,
and
I don't see
respond.
any immediate ones right now, but yeah, we'll check them later. But thanks for catching that Zoom Q&A. I wasn't even paying attention there. And thanks for
Oh.
the question to our Zoom attendee.
Yeah, so if you guys that are on Zoom or on social media, if you have any questions or comments, please post, and we'll be able to get back to you. Of course, once we log out of Zoom, you won't be able to post on Zoom, so you can post through our website or find us on social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. And we pride ourselves in responding to every single question that comes up. And we welcome your comments. Also, if you have any ideas for future topics for webinars, let us know because we're planning next year's webinar series already. So we're compiling a list of topics that we're going to discuss and come to an agreement on. So I know we're basically running out of time, but I want to thank you guys for attending. Stay tuned for our future webinars and sign up if you can. If you can't make it because you're working or you have other commitments during the day and time, sign up anyway, because when you do that, our system will email you the link to our webinar video. So if you can't make it, you can still get the link by signing up. So you're not, we're not, if you sign up and you don't make it, we're not going to send you a nasty email saying, hey, you signed up and you never attended. What's up? None of that stuff. We're nice people. Okay, so we're going to sign off a little early this time, and we'll hope to see you attending the next webinar. And on behalf of Martin and myself, we thank you for attending, and we'll see you next time. Aloha.